given this information from the question. They want us to answer some of these questions that follow from the information. And what we are having here, one key you have to pay attention to is that in a quadratic graphing, this is what we call a quadratic. So this is the only boy or the only guy that we can call a quadratic. It says that ax squared plus what bx plus c, right? So this guy, don't worry about that. The only thing you have to focus on is on the value of a, b, and c. So these three guys are any numbers that you can think of, and we are going to find them with the information being given to us. So from the graph, they want us to find the minimum value of y. So minimum value of the guy here, so y. So how do you do that? So look at something. When I say the minimum of something, look at the curve that I'm having here. So this is the curve, right? So this is just a simple curve that we are having here. Of course, you can see that this will be the minimum, right? The minimum, the smallest among also everything that from this point here goes up, right? Everything here goes up. Is that okay? So everything from here goes up, and so on and so forth. So you want the minimum, meaning that the smallest guy here, right? So this will be the minimum. But the question says to find the minimum value of y. So if you draw your line perfectly from the graph, you can see that you are having something of this nature, right? So let's say this is just something simple. So this line here is the what we call the x, right? The x line here. So everybody on this line we call them what x, and then anybody on this line from top to down is what we call what y. But the question says that you should find the minimum value of what y. So meaning that you have to trace this guy to what, to the y line, right? So anybody on this line from top to down or down to top is what we call y. So you need to trace this guy to what, to the y line to determine the minimum value. So if you read correctly, you can see that the minimum value from the graph is exactly negative 15, right? From the graph here, you just need to look at the graph and read that and write your answer down. Now the next one says that you should find the root of what, the equations, right? And then use that to form the what, the quadratic equation. So this is what we call the quadratic equation, right? This guy is exactly what we call the quadratic equation. So your aim here is to know the a and then b as well as and the c. That is very, very simple. So how do you do that? You must know exactly what we call the root of the equation, right? So the root of the equation are what, the meeting points of the curve and what, the x-axis. What it means is that the meeting point of the curve, this is what we call the curve, right? This is the curve. This line is what we call what, the curve here. Is that okay? So this is the curve. So the meeting point of the curve. So that English says that the meeting point of the curve and what, the x. So this is the x, not the y, the x. So where exactly the curve meet the x here? So this is what, one meeting point, and this is what, a second meeting point, right? So we are not talking about the y, but rather the x. The meeting point of the x here is exactly what we call the root of the equation. So this guy is one root here, right? And then this guy here is also another root. Is that okay? So exactly, this is the curve and this is the x line. So where the curve here meets the x line is what we call the root. So this guy here is the what, the root, right? So this is what, root 1 and as well as what, root 2, because the curve here cuts the x line at what, two different what, meeting point. Is that okay? So you just need to look at the graph and read what, which value is here as well as which value of. This is just for illustration purpose. You need to focus on the question. So you can see here from the question that from the graph, you can see that x here is what, we have one at what, -4, and then the second one to be what, 1.5. So this thing is exactly like 3.3 over 2, right, in fraction form. So this is what, 3 over 2, and this is what, 1.2. These two guys are exactly what you call the root of what, the curve. Is that okay? So the name of these guys are what, the root of the curve. So what do you use the root of the curve, or how can you use that to write the equations of the line? So this is the only way, right? So as you can see, this is the only way that we are having for the high school students here. That is for you to write any quadratic equation, right? For you to write something that looks like this, one, you must know the root of what the curve here. So that is what you've already find out here. So here we are going to have x squared, right? So this is the key. This is the only thing that can take you to get something that looks like a quadratic equation. So we are having what x squared here. So of course y here will be x squared minus what the sum of the roots. That is why you need to know the roots here. So the sum of the root, meaning that we should add the two roots that we are having and multiply by x here, right? And then plus on the product of the root. So the product means that the multiplication of what? The root, right? So just pay attention. The first one is x squared minus what? Sum here, right? Sum means what? Addition here, and then here means what? Multiplication. Remember there's x here attached to the summation. Is okay, and everything equal to 0, right? This is one key that you have to have at your disposal. So this is the only card that can take us to a quadratic equation, so house over it, right? So now first thing first, you have to make sure that you know the summations of the root, and then you know the product of it, and just plugging into this guy and have what your quadratic equation. Okay, now that we know the roots of the equation, that is negative 4 as well as 1.5, which is what 3 over 2. You need to find the sum of the root. So the summations of the root, right? The additions of the root. So the roots are what? Negative 4 here plus what? 3 over 2, right? So 3 over 2 is just what? The 1.5 that we are having here. So if you add these two guys, you are going to get negative 5 over 2. If you enjoyed the video so far, you don't consider subscribing to the YouTube channel, and then like and comment in the description section of it. Okay, now after getting the summations of the root, we know that we know two things. We need the summations of the root as well as what? The product of the root. So the product means what? Multiplication, right? So we are going to multiply the two roots here. That is the negative 4 multiplied by what? 3 over 2. That should be minus 12 over 2. That is exactly negative 6. So we are having 1, that is the negative 5 over 2, as well as what? Negative 6. So this is the sum of what? The root, and then this is the product of the root, right? So all that you need to do, you just need use that method, right? The guide that will take us to the quadratic destination is what? The x squared minus what? The sum of what? The root x here is attached to the summation, and then plus what? The product of the root. Everything is equal to 0. So let's replace that over. So here you are having the summations of the root to be what? Minus 5 over 2, right? That is what we had when we added the two roots, and then multiply by x here, and then plus what? Negative 6 here, right? Remember to put everything into bracket because there's a negative here, so that to avoid any minor mistake. Is that okay? So how do you do this? Here you have to make sure that you multiply everything by what? 2, because this is a fraction. You want everything to go straightforward. In other words, to be what? In a linear form. So we want to take the negative the 2 at the denominator away. So we are multiplying everything by 2, right? So before that, we have that a negative give us a positive here. Is that okay? And then yeah, if you multiply everything by 2, you should have 2x squared plus 5x minus 12, because we are multiplying everything here by 2. Okay, now with this is what we call what? The equation, quadratic equation. Is that okay? So now this is what we are given from the question, right? We are given that the relation is what? Y equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. Is that okay? So and this is what we have to be what? The quadratic equation. So if you compare, you have to compare the two guys. Is that okay? Now the any guy attached to the x squared here is what we call a, right? A friend of x squared is a. So if you look at what we had here, we have that to be what? A guy attached to the x squared is 2, meaning that our a here is 2, right? And a friend of x here, right? A friend of x here is what? Is b. So from what we had that to be what? 5, right? So b is 5, and then the final one will be what? Your c here. So the values of the a, b, and then c are what? 2, and then positive 5 as well as negative 12 here. So these are the values of what? The a that we are having from this question. So this is how simple you solve questions that looks like this